by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's news leader.
Could we be in for another government shutdown? President Trump says we could. I'm Laura Podesta. I'll tell you why his Republican colleagues in Washington are not on board with the idea.
6:30 on this Monday. Chet Lehman, Missy O'Malley with you. Carson Vickroy has our work week forecast in just a moment. And again, our top story this half hour. President Donald Trump said he would consider shutting down the government over the promised Mexico border wall. Mr. Trump says he'll make it happen if the Democrats don't approve the funding to build it.
But as CBS's news correspondent Laura Podesta reports, analysts say a government shutdown is so close to midterm elections it could end up hurting Mr. Trump more than helping him.
President Trump is doubling down on a longtime campaign promise to build a wall at the U.S.-Mexico border. Yesterday, he tweeted a threat. I would be willing to shut down government if the Democrats do not give us the votes for border security, which includes the wall, must get rid of lottery, catch and release, etc., and finally go to system of immigration based on merit. But fellow Republicans are not supporting the shutdown idea. It would coincide with the start of the new budget year, October 1st. That's very close to the November 6th midterm elections, and control of both the House and Senate is at stake.
I don't think it'd be helpful, so let's try and avoid it.
We're going to make sure we keep the government open, but we're going to get better policies on immigration.
The president wants a total of $25 billion to build the border wall. With the federal budget year ending September 30th and the House on recess until after Labor Day, there isn't much time to negotiate a solution. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
Now, President Trump campaigned on the promise of building a wall to deter illegal immigration and by making Mexico pay for it. Mexico has refused.
6:32 now on this Monday. Meteorologist Carson Vickroy joins us. Carson, not a bad weekend. We had some nice weather, beautiful out this morning. How are we looking as we head into this last Monday of July?
Yep, I mean, if you want to do your rain dance today, that's not going to happen, unfortunately, regardless of what dance you do. But we are going to be warm. Outdoor activities are in because warmer temperatures are expected today. I do expect mid to upper 80s for the most part. Ridge of high pressure is going to cause that, which will keep us dry not only today but into Tuesday. And then we will talk about rain chances here in a few minutes coming up on Wednesday. Temperatures across the region right now. Here in southwest Montana, we're generally in the 40s with the exception of that cold spot. Always cold down there in West Yellowstone, which is right at freezing at this hour. Here's that Bozeman planner. A nice morning will lead to some 80s this afternoon. Make sure you apply that sunscreen because we're going to see some abundant sunshine out there this morning. And then Butte, temperatures starting off in the 50s by about 9 o'clock, climbing into the 70s and 80s with that sunscreen being required by about 3 o'clock under clear skies. Now we'll talk about all of that coming up in my full forecast here in just a few minutes. Chet and Missy.
Thank you, Carson. 6:33 now. An update, missing teen James Anderson, who was last seen Friday night when his family involved in a boating accident on the Yellowstone River. According to Park County Sheriff's Office, that search is now shifted to recovery. James, along with his father, Gallatin County Sheriff Captain Jim Anderson, James' mother Angie, and his sister were all on a boat when it capsized. Angie was declared dead on the scene, while Captain Anderson and his daughter safely made it to shore. James has still not been found. More than 150 people took part in the search for him. The Sheriff's Office says it will be reducing the size of crews as the Yellowstone River reopens Sunday evening at 9 o'clock.
And there was a close call and major damage to a house on West Shore Drive in the River Rock subdivision in Belgrade after a truck plowed through it. Montana Highway Patrol got the call after 7:30 on Sunday. A miner who was driving the truck with 2 other occupants, one of them was in the truck's bed, was spotted doing donuts in the subdivision in the parking lot just before the crash. Montana Highway Patrol says the driver exited the parking lot at a high speed, attempted to speed up through a stop sign before losing control of the truck and crashed it into a home. 2 of those occupants in the truck suffered minor injuries, and right now speed is the only suspected cause for that crash. The occupants of the home were at home at the time. They tell Montana Highway Patrol and MTN News that they were standing just a few feet away from where the vehicle entered their home. The incident is still under investigation.
We have an update for you this morning on the Bacon Rind fire, which was caused by lightning on July 20th. That fire just 20 miles south of Big Sky, 23 miles north of West Yellowstone. Fire has now grown to 412 acres, continues to slowly back down the slope above Highway 191. Smoke still visible from the highway, but it is not threatening the road at this time. There are no structures in that area in danger at this time as well.
And a display of Russia's naval power is in the heart of St. Petersburg. Russian President Vladimir Putin is inspecting the vessels from his own presidential boat and then touting the advances of the country's naval forces.
That includes a submarine nicknamed the Carrier Killer, designed to hunt U.S. aircraft carriers, a new stealth frigate, and a spy vessel aimed at countering American missile defense technology. As Fred Pleiken reports, Russia clearly showing America and its allies that its forces are stronger and more advanced than at any time since the Cold War.
A display of Russia's naval power in the heart of St. Petersburg. Vladimir Putin inspecting the vessels from his own presidential boat, then touting the advances of the country's naval forces.
The Russian fleet successfully resolves the tasks of the country's defense capability, makes a significant contribution to the fight against international terrorism, and plays an important role in ensuring strategic parity.
Strategic parity means parity with the U.S. and its NATO allies. Russia showcasing a submarine nicknamed the Carrier Killer, designed to hunt U.S. aircraft carriers. A new stealth frigate and a spy vessel aimed at countering American missile defense technology. On this day, Vladimir Putin's message to the West is very clear. Even though Russia's military might not be as big and as well funded as militaries in the West, it can still be a threat to America and its NATO allies. Last week, Russia also showing off new missile technology, including a hypersonic missile the Kremlin says can beat American defense systems. All this right after both President Trump and Vladimir Putin discussed working together to prevent a new arms race at their recent summit in Helsinki, a point Putin reiterated this past week.
Russia and the United States have a stake in that. The whole world has a stake in that, in not starting an arms race.
But while Russia may be interested in preventing an arms race, Russia also clearly wants to show America and its allies that its forces are stronger and more advanced than at any time since the Cold War. Fred Pleiken, CNN, St. Petersburg, Russia.
6:37 now on this Monday. This week under the big sky, John and Courtney McKee, owner of Headframe Spirits in Butte, are proud members of their community.
That's right, but the couple does acknowledge that Butte's past has not always invoked a sense of pride. They hope that Headframe Spirits can help shift current attitudes towards the mining city.
Under the Big Sky is sponsored by Rocky Mountain Vein Clinic and Markovich Real Estate.
People who have heard of Butte, especially in Montana, there's sometimes a negative connotation associated with Butte's past.
Because it's Butte, there's a lot of chin out. We are a town that's sort of known as a blue-collar, rough-and-tumble kind of town, and there's a lot to that that's true.
I think we need messages coming out of Butte that aren't, show up in Butte on St. Patrick's Day and you can beat people up and drink in the street and it's great.
I have had my nose broken in Butte, but it's because I was dumb enough to pick on somebody bigger than me. That's not who Butte is. That's not who Butte it needs to be going forward.
We hope that the tasting room that we've made, the spirits that we've put into bottles, and the booze that we send out into the world will give people an opportunity to look at and think about Butte in a different way.
That change in perception is tough to do, but ultimately is the most important thing Butte can be doing for itself right now, and it's something that Courtney and I have really tried to champion about our place in the world, is let's change that perception of Butte. I think it's gonna be a really cool thing to think about this town in not 20 years, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. There's things happening here that are just amazing, and we're really proud to be the part of it that we are.
Now you can catch their entire story of the Headframe Spirits at underthebigsky.com.
Love that.
Very cool.
Yep.
And I love that.
Good things are happening.
Yes.
You're right about that, too.
You're right. Absolutely. We want you to stay with us. Coming up, we have a good deed that's going viral. Something positive to start your Monday morning.
Something else positive is Nora O'Donnell dressed so cheery this morning.
Yes.
Here's a look at what's coming up at 7.
Good morning ahead here on CBS This Morning. We're in Northern California with the latest efforts to gain control of deadly wildfires. And some animal lovers who think they're taking out a loan to pay for pricey pets are actually leasing them. How the controversial practice could cost people their pets. We'll see you right at 7.